the way you deliver it is you have these 2 horse ropes that you wrap around the keg and then guide it down a rail. And if anybody's ever been to McGillen's, it's a party there nonstop, no matter what time of the day. So right now, especially during holiday time, people are coming out and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? And it's like people start videoing me and all this other stuff. It's like, no pressure, don't drop that keg, so.
All right, welcome back to the Brew Dat Podcast. I'm your host, Richie Tevlin, joined again by Evan Bloom. And tonight we have, I want to say it, Philadelphia brewing industry legend, Jon Oldt.
Hey.
18 plus years in the game, and currently the head of wholesale distribution at Philadelphia Brewing Company.
That's me. How's everybody doing?
Doing well. So,
Thanks, Jon, for
I've
being
known you for, 5 years now since I started at Philadelphia Brewing Company.
A little bit of a blur, but,
but, definitely wanted to have you on. You're like a beer man's beer man is what I want to call you. Like, really
appreciate that.
In the not just the Philly brewing scene, but the Philly bar scene, probably more people than anyone else. You've been in more bars, more basements, more dive bar basements. You've seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the Philly beer scene.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a lot of great stories, so wanted to have you on here.
Yeah, sure. Let's get it started.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I guess we had talked about you graduated Temple in 2005.
Correct.
And kind of got right into Yards, which eventually became Philly Brewing. But, if you just want to start from the beginning.
Yeah, so like you said, 18 plus years in the beer industry, seen a lot of experience. So, yeah, if we want to start at the beginning, 2005, right around May, I turned 21 and the end of March. So through kind of fell into it, to be honest. My dad was kind of sick of giving me money to get through college, and he actually met the owners, Bill and Nancy Barden, at Cherry Street Tavern.
Nice.
Best roast beef in the city, hands down. You can fight me for it. And he had got talking to them, and we're just happened to find out what they were all about, and was like, oh man, can you give my kid an interview? Like, don't hire him. He just needs interview experience. And I went in for the interview, and they ended up hiring me, and my dad wasn't happy about that. He called them back. He's like, I told you not to hire him. And he's like, kid's great. Like, we need somebody. So it all worked out. Yeah. So, so I started there, and I'll still remember the first thing that Bill said to me. He was like, you're not afraid to get your hands wet, are you? I was like, no. And like, because everything, in a brewery is wet, whether it's water, beer, chemicals, or whatever. Just scrubbing floors, cleaning kegs, helping on the bottling line, hopping on a truck when I needed to. And then in right around, 2006, I can't remember the exact time that this happened, but Yards was with a wholesaler called Friedland, RIP to the Friedland wholesale industry. And they had gotten bought out by, I believe it was Kunda Beverage, and we saw kind of a little bit of a window of opportunity. We didn't want to be coupled with another wholesaler. And there was a window of opportunity for us to become a self-distributed brewery. And nobody was doing that at the time. And, along with scrubbing floors and cleaning kegs and all that stuff. And when I graduated in the summer of 2006, they had just finished the litigation with the retaining our wholesale distribution rights.
And we had just talked to Nick at Stones, and you're locked in for life when you sign one of those deals. So you guys were kind of given a second opportunity to see if this was something that you guys wanted to do. Yeah,
like I said, I had kind of just started there, so it's not like I was in the courtroom or anything like that. But I don't know all the details of that whole situation. But we were able to get out of, since one wholesaler was buying another one, it was like, they could. I don't know how it worked out. Anyway,
but you guys got out.
So we got out, and now all of a sudden we're doing everything directly with our own trucks, our own salespeople. So we had a great name in the city, and then the surrounding aspect of it too. So I grew up in the Northeast in Fox Chase, and then went to LaSalle College High School in the early 2000s. And, so it was up kind of in like the Montgomery County, Bucks County area, just kind of where I was, so I was a lot more familiar with what was going on up there.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had gone to Temple and then, was working at the brewery, but I wasn't hanging out in North Philly, and Fishtown / Kensington
was not what it is today.
was for sure not what it is now. Yeah, so there was only a few spots that you could go that was, let alone safe, but had good craft beer. And so, rewind back a little bit, but so they come to me and it was like I graduated and they're like, well, we need an on-the-road salesperson. And I jumped at it, and it was just like, man, things just keep falling into place here. So I jumped in my car that my brother gave me for my graduation. It was a used Volkswagen Corrado with 6 cylinders, and it was very fast, and I was 21 and zipping around.
Like more bar visits per day.
All over. Yeah, it was just like a ridiculous amount of driving and all over the place. So that's where I really cut my teeth, was with the whole self-distribution thing. So people were real excited about the fact that they could buy directly from us because they could get the beer. There was no middleman markup, so they could get the beer cheaper than what they had paid before, and we were making more money because we didn't have to sell it to the wholesaler.
Cheaper, and it's kind of cool to
let's say less expensive.
Less expensive. And
cheaper does it
like,
more.
There is no middleman. Like, they're making the beer and it's getting delivered right to the bar. There's
right.
something kind of cool about that as well.
Right. Yeah. So that's what we kind of based everything off of, was that self-distribution motto. We made shirts up one time that says, use the ring we bring. And we always thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, it was this whole, factory direct thing, and people were really jumping behind it and really just put our whole muscle into all of that.
Which is very cool. I mean, I think a lot of the people that we're going to have on here, we talk about self-distribution. They just kind of take it for granted. In 2005, 2006, that wasn't a thing. Like, you guys were kind of creating that as you were going.
Yeah, I mean, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, out there, if we weren't some of the first ones to do it, if not the first one in this area.
Definitely, I would.
But we really, we really went for it, and it was successful. We had, for the majority of the part, people really gravitated towards it. Some people were old school, and they were like, well, I only buy from these wholesalers or whatever. So, and, that took just a little bit more effort and annoying people. And
how fast was it until a bunch of people started doing the same thing and like self-distribution?
Man, I don't really think it was that. I want to say like Tired Hands maybe was like the first one after us. Again, yeah, memory's a little foggy, but whenever Tired Hands was coming around, they were doing it self-distribution. And like you said, now it's like, it seems to be like everybody's doing it. They don't want to get lost in a wholesale portfolio, or they don't want somebody else selling their beer because they don't know as much about it, or something like that. So we, fast forward to around the summer of 2007, and, Bill and Nancy were partners with Tom Kehoe, and he, owner of Yards now, but they, the things just kind of started to separate. Their ideals of how they wanted to grow the business became, they just became different. And Tom wanted to, expand and go up and down the East Coast, and Bill and Nancy wanted to keep things a lot more tighter and sell more beer, more fresh beer in the Philadelphia region and Jersey and kind of things like that. And we were doing so well at the time with the self-distribution that it was like, well, we can't justify selling beer to Rhode Island if Philadelphia needs it.
Yeah, and it was still probably an unrealized market. I mean, you guys still had ton of potential to grow at that point.
Yeah, and at that time, I mean, there weren't as many, not nearly as many craft breweries as there are now, but even, compared to like 2010 or 2009, there wasn't that many options as far as beer was concerned.
Probably less than 200 craft breweries in the whole country at that point.
Yeah, and in Philly, you were thinking like 10 tops, maybe. I don't know. I'm being not generous at that point, but yeah.
There was maybe, and probably most of those places don't even exist anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And
That's a crazy number. Like, just for perspective, we talked about this before, but there's like 160 breweries in Philly, like in the surrounding area.
yeah, exactly. It's like everybody's doing it, or everybody thinks they can do it, and then they find out they can't, or they have something good and they keep rolling with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the time we were really successful, and they had, that people were gravitating towards it. So, came down to like the summer of 2007, and they decided to split, and things were a little rough for a little while in the summer and of 2007, and I stayed on to work with Yards through the rest of the year, and then not necessarily knowing exactly what was going to happen with Philadelphia Brewing, and since Bill was the one that had hired me.
Yeah.
I always respected Tom. I never had any, ill will towards Tom, but Bill was the one that, hired me, signed my checks.
And you were 2 years in at this point, and it just kind of made sense.
Yeah, and then so, when it came down to it, Tom was nice enough to keep me on, and he needed somebody to run, the distribution business for the rest of the year for him, and he was gracious enough to keep me on, and I did what I could for him. But when it came to the beginning of the year, Philadelphia Brewing Company was starting anew, and I decided to go with them because I wanted to know what it was going to be like to start a brand from the ground up.
Yeah.
And essentially my loyalty was to Bill and to Nancy.
Called Philadelphia Brewing Company. I mean,
exactly. It's like, hey, we're going to have Philadelphia Brewing Company, and people were buzzing really hard about it, and it was like, we got a really great opportunity to do some great things here. And
so Yards left, they moved to their new location, and then Bill and Nancy stayed at the Kenzinger location.
Right.
I guess Tom took the name Yards, and then Bill and Nancy kind of created this Philadelphia Brewing Company.
Yeah, so from the beginning, Bill and Nancy were investors in Yards. So Tom always had the name and the brand rights and all that. But the Kensington facility was always Bill and Nancy's. They owned the bricks, and they owned all the equipment.
Yeah.
So, so Tom was going to take his brand elsewhere, but he needed a brewing facility. I think he was down at Poplar at where Mainstay is now for a little while before they created the Spring Garden facility. So that was the whole thing. It was like, hey, we have a whole brand new line of beers, and it's still the same crew and all this other stuff. And
do you remember what the beers were then?
Yeah, first 4 beers were, the first one's Kenzinger.
Yeah.
That's where the whole concept for everything came from. Yeah, right, exactly. Kenzinger, Walt Wit, New Bold IPA, and Row House Red. So
I'm sure some people listening are going to hear that and be like, wow, I haven't thought about that Roadhouse Red in a bit.
I just talked to my brother-in-law, and he was like, God, are they ever going to bring that beer back? I'm like, you sound like all the other guys that really want it, really want that beer back. And
you got to vote with your dollars. Like, if you want something, you got to buy it.
It's still a business, and Row House Red was a great beer. Maybe we'll bring it back someday. We still got the recipe, and so but yeah, great beer, but just didn't sell, as well as it. Yeah, well, I mean, easier to make, and more approachable.
Definitely.
And when you're running a business, especially if you're just starting one, you can't really have beers that are not selling as well.
For sure.
So yeah, those were the first 4 beers, and we were off and running with it, and making variety cases and hand mixing variety cases, and those were the days. It's like
your fingers are all
you come in the morning, and it's like, we need 3 pallets of variety cases made, and people are just, it's like a nut house. I don't miss those days. But yeah, so then 2008 started, and we were off and running again, and now just a clean slate, new brewery, a whole new situation, and still self-distributed.
So based off of how the brewery's set up now, was it kind of laid out the same way? Brew house up on the 3rd floor.
Yep.
With all the tanks up there, and then kind of bottling around.
Yeah. There was a couple things that had changed. The upstairs pretty much always remained the same. Like, we moved a couple tanks around and things like that. Yeah. But downstairs, like the main floor where the bottling line was, or still is. That's what got moved around a little bit.
That had some tanks in it, right?
Yeah, we had some temporary tanks down there. Everything was done down there, actually. Bright tanks, the keg washing, everything. So then we started to compartmentalize some different things and move bright tanks into a different sector of the building. all keg washing, keg filling get moved downstairs to like one section. So it was a very temporary situation. And so when we came up with the new concept and everything, we were able to rearrange. Took 2 months off and didn't come out with beer till March. It was like 2 full months of just a complete building rehab.
You're creating a new company at that point.
Yeah, it was like we really need a whole fresh start, like literally fresh paint and fresh floors and the whole deal. Yeah. So yeah, it was that was interesting as well.
Like, put it behind you also, like you guys were yards and kind of fresh start. This is Philadelphia Brewing now.
Yep.
How was that period? Like just being a part of that.
It was awesome. I'll be honest. There's you can't get those memories, back, or you can't get those experiences back. You can do different things, like, but it was the time, that time period was, like you said, we were kind of really just getting started, and the whole boom of craft beer was really, everything was buzzing super hard, and it was wild. We had great times,
And you were a salesperson at this time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was always kind of like I always had the sales title, at that time, but it was everybody had to do everything, and that was always that's always been a motto of ours, is you always have to be able to do everything. The only thing I can't do there is brew.
Yeah.
So I've never brewed.
And you guys are, I was there for a couple of years. You guys do everything. If there's an issue, you guys aren't finding anyone else. Bill figures out how to do it, and someone's doing it there.
And there's a lot, to be said about that. It's frustrating, because it's like, well, I just want to go in and do my job and do this, but like, oh, the elevator broke and forklift didn't start, and everybody's got to work on it together. It's
it's always like grass is greener on the other side, and there's like someone sitting in a cubicle, and like, what do they want to do? They want to.
Correct.
It's like every day is new there. It's like there's always something happening.
Yeah, it sounds like a startup mentality all the time. Which is a fun sort of environment.
Yeah,
if you're up for the task.
Exactly. When you get to 18 years, it gets, like there's things that you would think wouldn't happen again, but I digress. Yeah, but yeah.
So what was being a salesperson like back then? Were you? It was so early in craft beer. Were you still having to explain to people what craft beer was, or you were kind of like, Kenzinger is craft beer, but it's kind of like a more approachable craft beer where it's like you could sell it almost as like an alternative to Bud Light or something like that.
Yeah, it was tough because you had your hardcore macro drinkers who just wouldn't steer away from Miller Lite or Bud Light or anything like that. So it was
which I would say a lot of the places that Philadelphia Brewing is sold, especially Kenzinger,
right,
is the bars that still haven't. You guys are in all the craft breweries, but also like you guys are like such a staple in these places that like people just drink Miller Lite and Kenzinger. Yeah,
I think to touch on that, it was we have a great presence in Philly. Like we're like the underground Philly beer, you know, and with a name like Philadelphia Brewing, everybody's like, well, you guys like, why aren't you guys bigger or all this other stuff? And it's like, well, we're mom and pop owned, there's no big group of investors, there's no super huge board. It's like, we all pitch in and we make it work.
Yeah. Also, I think a lot of people don't realize how much beer you guys make. It's like, I think you're so close to it, but I think like people like look at Kenzinger and be like, yeah, I've heard of that, but like Kenzinger is in almost every bar.
Yeah, it's
you personally have probably sold 100,000 barrels of Kenzinger, which is like wild to say.
That's good. That's a good question, but yeah, most likely.
It's insane the amount of Kenzinger that you've sold.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that because now I'm curious. But yeah, it's been a lot, man. Being in the sales, in beer sales at that time it was great, because you get to walk in anywhere and people are really happy to see the beer guy,
Did you guys have the tap handles at that point? Because like I know. We do have Philadelphia Brewing does have cool tap handles like the custom.
Oh yeah, we were making them from the start. So yeah, we make all our own custom tap handles.
Really?
Some
I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So
the
Walt Wit, have you ever seen the pencil?
Yeah.
That's like the pencils that like your teacher would buy. Like
they're like actual pencils. Yeah, it's like an actual pencil that erases. It just doesn't have the graphite.
Yeah.
It was we had to do so many quirky little things. When you're a startup and you're trying to do the best with the resources that you have. and we found some kind of goofy, novelty magazine, and we're like, look at these big pencils. And we had a guy at the time, Tyson. He was like our head tap handle guru at that point.
Doer of everything.
Yeah, what that guy could do with anything, it was just
He is the coolest
such a
house
creative.
I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, so he's they recently moved to New Mexico, so
Oh wow,
good for him.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so he was like, I can just put like a ferrule on that and like make it work, and then all of a sudden it's like you're just seeing these huge pencils like pop up at bars, and some bars liked it, some people didn't, because it was like, this thing's too big and it's all ridiculous, but it sold beer. You know what I mean? It was people just walking up and be like, what's the pencil? They didn't even care what it was. It's like, so yeah, that was always a fun part, was like making the tap handles and coming out with new beers and figuring out what the tap handle's going to be.
You guys have been around for so long that, everybody needed a tap handle, and you guys were making them. And now in the last 5-10 years, it's almost like people don't have tap handles, because now a lot of bars just have like the little snub things.
Oh,
but
yeah.
now it's almost come full circle, where now like everyone was like trying to differentiate themselves. Now like you're seeing these craft breweries come out with these unique tap handles.
Yeah, because
again, and they're like reinventing what you guys made.
Well,
15,
it was
20
like
years ago.
You had to differentiate yourself. I mean, the idea behind the individual tap handles was, we wanted to steer away from things that yards, what we were known with yards, which was, people would just come up to the bar and like, let me get a yards, and you didn't even know what it was, whether it was the IPA or the Philly Pale or whatever. It was just, hey, this is
different.
Yeah, it was just like, well, it wasn't differentiated. Like there was no like
But it was different
individual
than, like,
brand.
Light. They were just ordering yards.
Right, yeah. I meant like how the tap handles made it like an individual brand. So
Okay,
it's like,
yeah.
okay, well, I know that's Walt Wit.
Yeah.
The reverse side of that is we would have trouble with people recognizing that we were Philadelphia Brewing. So it was like, oh, you guys make Kenzinger and Walt Wit? Oh, okay, I didn't know that, because everything was so uniform. Because everybody would say, oh, well, Victory Brewing Company's thing, or so-and-so Yards Brewing Company's beer. So we were always trying to be known as like Kenzinger. And, because the big picture behind that was, take like Sam Adams, for instance. You don't go in and order a Boston Beer Company Sam Adams lager, So it was that was always like, the whole situation behind that.
Yeah, and to that point, like when I learned Kenzinger was from Philadelphia Brewing, that kind of surprised me for the first time.
People think it's its own brand. I mean, it's its own monster.
Yeah, I mean, over the years we've tooled with like coming out with other sub-genres under the Kenzinger name itself. Still love to do that, like a Kenzinger Dark or a Kenzinger Oktoberfest or anything like that, like making its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, so that was always like the reasoning behind it. So we wanted to separate ourselves from, being under the umbrella of another brewery.
When did Commonwealth Cider become a thing? Was that from the beginning?
Yeah, I think that didn't come out till 2011.
Okay.
And I still remember that first batch we did it with champagne yeast, and it was like the driest thing I had ever had. And I was like, wow, I'm blown away. Like it was so good, because we saw like another, portion of the market that was totally untouched, by anybody, like any local craft cideries or anything like this. And the only options you had were Strongbow, Magners, and then Angry Orchard came out.
Yeah.
And we were like, Angry Orchard is just basically soda. It's just so much sugar, and it was just disgusting. And, don't care. It still is.
No,
so.
I agree with you. Dry cider's the way to go.
Yeah. So, 2011 we came out with the cider, and that's been going really well for us. I mean, people love the dry, only 1 gram of sugar, so people love the dry
it's awesome.
style.
It's like every single time it's exactly the same. It's like
it drinks like a white wine, and it's like people drink it and they're like, oh, I don't usually like cider, but I can drink this,
Yeah.
And I think that's, a big thing with what we do, even with our beers, is everything's very approachable. And, when it comes down to it, you're thinking of people who start a brewery don't necessarily think like it's a business. You still have to run a business, and you still have to employ people and pay their salaries and all these different things. So you can come out with all the hypey, beers that you want, but unless you keep that train rolling, which to me seems extremely expensive. Like there's no
I
brand
think about this
loyalty
all
or
the time. It's like
yeah,
people. This is gonna come off wrong, but like people don't think of Philadelphia Brewing as like the hype or this cool new brewery.
yeah.
But you guys have been around for 15, 20 years.
And it's
And
kind
look
of
at all these other places that have flared up and
Yeah.
have gone out of business.
We're
they might
still
be cool
here.
for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
And here's Philadelphia Brewing, always there.
We're
at
still
every
here.
single bar, doing the same thing, putting out the same, 5, 6 beers every single year, and look, it's a successful business.
Yeah, it
works.
And it's kind of funny too because there's a lot of styles that we've come out with over the years that turned into like, oh my God, like we did the Joe Coffee Porter. Kind of a funny story behind that. It's named Joe because it's Joe Badia from Pizzeria Badia. He had this funny idea. He used to brew for Yards, so that's where we know Joe from. I've known Joe since '05. Joe's awesome. He is exactly who you think he is. That
Bill told me a story one time that
yeah.
he said Joe would brew beer in 4 hours. And you physically cannot brew beer in 4 hours. And Joe was just like, yeah, like I just know where to like cut the corners. But I think he was like already focused on pizza at that point. But like you physically cannot brew beer in 4 hours. But he would like be done brew days in 4 hours. I'm like,
yeah, Joe had his own way of doing things, and it seems like he's still doing his own thing today,
and
which
it's
is
working
great.
now.
Yeah, so he had this funny idea to come up with to put coffee and beer, and we're like, what are you talking about? And be like, oh, coffee porter.
And now that's like such a.
And now, exactly, and we
normal
came
thing.
out with Joe in '09, and it's like, so
Was it always with was it Paceros?
I can't remember if we started with Paceros, but yeah, it's been Paceros for a long
while.
time. Another local roastery,
Yeah.
and I think they're based in Port Richmond still.
What's the secret? What's the next trends? That's the real question.
I don't know, man. I'll be completely honest. I think, everybody's been doing, obviously lagers and, are just been a mainstay recently. And I think everybody just got sick of the same haze bomb and all that different stuff. And certain styles have, solidified themselves. Obviously, like everybody needs a hazy IPA now on their tap list or different styles of IPAs. But beer's, we can all say it and be honest, beer's taking a little bit of a hit. Everybody's drinking seltzers and teas and all that different stuff. But I think, there's something to be said for good, consistent, brands that have stood the test of time and something you can depend on. It was terrible when now that you can't go into a beer store and get an Anchor Steam anymore. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have never had one, and now they won't be able to, and that's a shame from something that was a benchmark in craft beer, and it's sad to see things like that and people not appreciating where the people who started this whole situation. So as far as like what's next, I mean, people have been asking what's next all the time, and then it's like
I think the people that don't last are looking at everybody else saying what's next, and the
Yeah.
people that stay, even if they're making new beer all the time, they're making that decision on themselves. And like, Philadelphia Brewing is not looking at what other people are doing all the time. Like they're focused on what they're doing and look at it's working. Yeah. It's like it might not be like what's next. It's just like focus on what you're doing and make your own brand. You don't have to copy everybody else. The people that are copying everybody else are inevitably going to burn out.
yeah.
You can't always be chasing the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think there's something to be said for, consistent brands that have been in the market for a while, and, we're going to keep making it because people keep drinking it. So, and I got to have a paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Kenzinger is ever going to die.
No.
It's like you walk into like any
City
bar in the
staple.
city, doesn't matter where it is.
Not as long as those lights are still on, that
Yeah.
beer will still be getting pumped out. So, yeah, that's for sure. I can feel confident saying that. Yeah, for sure.
So, as a salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit different than, we're going to have a lot of brewers on this, but sales is a little bit different. You guys are making calls, you guys are selling beer to people, and then you guys are going out and actually delivering the beer. That means in Center City, you're taking an 18-foot truck,
Yeah.
trying to find a parking spot, hauling kegs, bringing it down the basement. People don't think about this stuff in beer, and like,
Yeah,
this is what This is what it takes.
Yeah, when you're a self-distributed brewery, I mean, you got to do everything. And, we try to be as flexible as possible with our customers. And, if somebody...
I mean, you were just saying before we got on, like, who was it? McGillen's was hitting you up, like, yesterday, and, like, we need beer today. And it's like...
Sometimes it will be, it was like...
you call, we
I had to
all.
go back. I had to go down in Center City anyway, and then it just so happened before I left, like, they were like, hey, we'll take this week. I'm like, well, why don't I give it to you today? And they're like, that's great. And,
I mean, today you were at what? You were at...
yeah, so I was at Johnny Brenda's, then Center City, went to McGillen's and Oscars, and then did a sales
Barcade.
appointment at the new Barcade. So, so it's like you got to be able to. So what
You're
really
managing beer coming out of the brewery, and then you're all over the city visiting these people at their bars.
Yeah, you get it's.
I mean, you've been doing it for so long, it probably feels natural to you. Like, if I were to go to all the 4 of those places in one day, I would come home and take a nap. You know?
Yeah. There's definitely a knack to it. I mean, what really changed for me was, along with a whole bunch of other things, but with the company as well, was when COVID hit, and we went from a staff of about 25 to 30 people down to like 5. And they kept me on because I was there the longest, and I knew what it was like to, deliver the beer and sell the
They
beer.
talk about
And
essential employees. You are essential.
I mean that,
So
so I took basically the entire wholesale operation on myself, and it was really scary, because I'm going all around places, and I'm still coming home to my wife and trying to make sure we don't get sick and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But I became this one-man band, and that just helped me to really prioritize my time and see a whole different side of the business with the logistics and the deliveries and all this other different things. I mean, I can tell you what times like loading zones are on certain streets, and where's the best time to park, and sometimes if there's going to be a parking authority there or not, or when's the best time to deliver to somebody, so it's like all those little nuances that really like come into play. Like, you don't want to be in
All
Center
over the
City at
city.
5 o'clock. Like, you're just going to sit there.
Yeah.
What's been one of the craziest like places, or maybe not places, but one of the harder deliveries or something? Like, I'm sure you see so much shit all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I won't name any names, but there's definitely places out there that are not as accessible. Delivering beer and putting kegs in basements it's hard work, and a lot of it is not safe.
I mean, you're dropping a lot of you're dropping them down the stairs, and they have like the wooden chutes that just drop on the tires.
Yeah.
And they're having to haul up kegs.
Yeah, I mean,
it's crazy.
floors that aren't concrete, they're, or it's just like, you're coming into some of these basements that are still the same way that the bar was when it opened in the 60s or
McGillen's
whenever.
is built in 18. I mean, not that McGillen's has these issues, but McGillen's is
Yeah,
like
well, let's
200
take
years
McGillen's
old.
for example.
Yeah.
So they have a good setup because, and it's funny because I was just there today, but they've been, they started that bar in 1860, so
Yeah.
it doesn't look like 1860 down there.
Yeah.
But the way you deliver it is you have these 2 horse ropes that you wrap around the keg and then guide it down a rail. And if anybody's ever been to McGillen's, it's a party there nonstop, no matter what time of the day. So right now, especially during holiday time, people are coming out and they're like, whoa, what's going on here? And it's like people start videoing me and all this other stuff. It's like, no pressure, don't drop that keg, So, thankfully, there hasn't been anybody that's, gotten seriously injured or anything like that. Pulled my back out a few times and had some close calls.
Yeah.
But, top priority is to try to be as safe as possible, yeah. But, there's definitely some terrible basements out there and places that I will not eat because I know what the kitchen looks like. So I won't mention any names. I'll keep that to myself. So, yeah, for sure. Yeah. As far as the whole sales thing goes, I think it's just, everything is continuing to evolve and change, especially in this industry, no matter what. I think right now is also a huge time of uncertainty. There's a lot of big breweries that are having problems, a lot of small breweries, a lot of mid-range breweries that are really seeing, problems as well too financially. And, but I think a big portion of it is if you have the resources, no matter what size you are, to just keep continuing on and pressing on and weather the storm, that there's going to be breweries that fall out and there's going to be ones that succeed, and that's just business,
Definitely.
And people keep, they don't say it to me as much now because I think they know. But people used to ask me all the time, well, when's the bubble going to burst? And I just kept saying, I'm like, it burst, guys. You just haven't seen the fallout yet. Like, it's done. Like,
there's a lot of breweries that are closing right now, and COVID put a lot of pressure on people, and then the bailouts, like everyone was like, oh, free money now, and then they started spending money like idiots, and now that like the economy kind of sucks, it's like, people aren't selling as much anymore. And, like, the people that were smart and kind of kept to their guns and did what, worked and what they knew what their business was good at,
right,
are the ones that are going to survive. And, like, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to go out of business. I don't think it's the bubble bursting. I think it's just people made some bad decisions, and, a lot of the people that made bad decisions are going to kind of get
I guess it was kind of more or less like, the bubble bursting as far as like going into the beer store, and I don't even recognize half the cans that are on the shelf, and I'm like, I don't even know who these people are. And it's like, and to me it used to be like you'd go to the bottle shop, at the end of the week and be like, oh, well, what's the new beer that's out, and then now it's like, oh, well, this is some other new brewery or whatever, and then $200 later you're like, well, I can't do that every week.
Exactly. So what do they fall back on? Kenzinger.
Yeah, they fall back on what they know, and and
something a little bit different than just a Miller Lite, but it's not, some crazy thing that they have no idea what it's going to taste like. Because there's so much inconsistency with a lot of these new breweries,
right?
That people are spending like $20, $24 for a 4-pack, and you have no idea what you're going to get.
Yeah, and I think people want to they depend on something that they know. They also want to support something local. That's still a huge thing that people believe in, and supporting local products. You can come to the brewery and ask people about, our brewery and about the beers and all these different things, so
involved in the community. It's like, you guys are so intertwined with that whole area. And
that was always a huge thing that Bill and Nancy wanted to try to convey, was that, we have to be part of the community because these are the people that are supporting us. So, we can't just be sitting here, not involved with things. And they genuinely wanted to be involved, and that brewery is a cornerstone of that neighborhood. And
I mean, you see the people that the people that have lived here before the gentrification, they support Philadelphia Brewing. They support Kenzinger. They support all of the Commonwealth cider, and it's it's a testament to what you guys have been doing from the beginning. Yeah,
we have a great local following, and like I said, that the building and the brewery itself is a cornerstone of the neighborhood. And what we were saying before is the Kensington area was not great, and it wasn't safe. And even before I got there, they got that building in 2000, so it was even worse back then. So it's come a long way, and there's something to be said about longevity, especially with a community oriented brewery like we have.
Definitely. And I mean, look at it now. It's like we just talked about Joe Padilla before, and now he's a part of Define Hospitality, like probably one of the top 3, if not one of the most, celebrated restaurant groups in the whole city right now.
Yeah.
And they're opening up a giant, fancy oyster bar, natural wine bar directly across the street from the brewery.
It's like a restaurant group Disneyland over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Martha Street is about to be crazy next summer.
Yeah. We don't really know exactly what to expect, but we know it's going to be good.
There's gonna be a lot of people there.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people. So I might have to get I might have to quit my job and open a parking lot. But yeah, we're real excited about that, and it's cool to see that building actually get used for something other than torn down and put more condos up that are crappy and an eyesore.
Nice. They reserved saved the whole outside.
Yeah, the entire outside walls.
And it matches your brewery. I mean, it used to be one brewery, the Weisboro Heiss.
Weisbrod and Hess. So our building was originally a brewery back in 1885, and unfortunately, due to Prohibition, they shut it down in around 1933, and it became like a storage warehouse for like supermarket equipment or something for a while, and then it just sat there until late 90s, early 2000s. And like I said, that was before me, but Bill came in and they did a ton of renovation on that brewery.
I think so. It was called the Weisboro and Hess.
Oriental
Brewery.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, something that was Oriental was fancy.
Yeah, it was
sounding,
like prestigious.
prestigious.
Yeah, exactly.
And they had like the peacock, so that's why you have the peacock room is the name of the tasting room.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
kind of going along with that. And
Yeah, it was like the peacock was like their main logo, and they even
Yeah.
had like a peacock beverages, like I think it was like a soda line, like soft drink line. But yeah, where the Soraya building is going to be, that was all part of our. We never owned that building, but it was all part of the main complex that housed the Weissbrod and Hess brewery, and it was 2 German immigrants who came over and just really, really, really went for it. And it's cool because we still see you can go downstairs in the basement, like underneath underneath the main floors, and see like a lot of the old stuff that was down there still. Like,
yeah, and you guys have like a lot of the pictures, like
Yeah.
Christmas pictures and stuff. And they
Yeah.
have pictures like they're holding up like dead deer in their company
yeah,
portraits.
yeah,
Like,
they
it's
used to
like-
have their own game reserve, like up in like northern Pennsylvania. So it was like, back when the days of like you just had free range of everything.
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, there's still some of the old pictures from the original pictures from the brewery.
I think if a craft brewery in Philadelphia were to post Christmas pictures with a big dead like slaughtered deer, I
Yeah.
don't think that they'd be selling too much beer.
Yeah, it would be it'd be interesting.
Things have
That would be, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of stuff happening. There's good things happening all over the place, so we're really looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yeah. So where are you finding yourselves most now? Like, are you still out on the road?
Yeah,
What's
so
your
I
days
mean,
look like now?
yeah, so I mean, like I said, I handle the entire wholesale operation. We've had to pare back on certain things, like we're not as prevalent like outside the city as we used to be. We
But I
had
think a lot of breweries are doing that. Like everyone's kind of like taking their footprint, like just focusing more
yeah,
on
yeah. I mean, we
their backyard.
we had to shift a lot of things and priorities, to the brewery itself, to the actual, like, to getting people in the door to the bar at the brewery, to the Peacock Room. And then, we hired a wonderful woman by the name of Angela Richie, who handles all of our private events. And we turned what used to just be our tasting room upstairs for tours. Like, we'd get, hundreds of people on tour days. We do tours every Saturdays. Now we just do tours on every 3rd Saturday. But, we turned that whole thing into an event space upstairs. So
There's
it's
weddings all the time.
yeah, weddings, private parties, holiday. Right now it's holiday parties all the time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Angie and Nancy decorate that place like crazy.
Oh yeah, it's there's definitely something always going on. But they, so we had to shift to that, to selling pints out the front door, because a big portion of our business was gone due to COVID, and it's definitely come back.
I mean, the bread and butter of Philadelphia Brewing was Kenzinger and kegs to all these bars that
Yeah.
now could not sell beer. And
Right.
a lot of those places weren't selling to-go beers. These were Philly dive bars.
Yeah, I mean, I had to, during that whole time, I had to try to go back outside of the city because the restrictions were different. Try to sell beer outside of the city, and it was mostly
It's a whole other game. I mean, the last time you were doing that was 2005, 2010. And
yeah, I was like, hey, I'm back. They're like, we
Yeah.
haven't seen you in a while. But once things started to switch, but now it's different. I mean, we still have a great foothold in with Kenzinger in city bars all over the place. But I mean, there is a lot more healthy competition out there as far as people making great beer, and it's great. But you got the likes, obviously Yards, but the likes of Love City and Human Robot. Everybody's doing great beers at this point, especially things that compete with Kenzinger on the pilsners
Yeah.
and the lager side of things. So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge no matter what, but we've built such a great customer base that are super loyal to us, and we keep them happy, and then do our best to whoever's coming out new, do our best to get our foot in the door over there as well too. But yeah, I mean, we have customers that have been with us since day one, so it's like that's few and far between to have a tap handle for 15 plus years, especially in this industry. So yeah, we got to be doing something right.
I mean, there's probably only 50 breweries across the country that have been around, craft breweries that have been around, like that consider themselves craft breweries that have been around for the last 18, 20 years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like anything else, it comes with its challenges. I mean, there's going to be ups and downs, industry changes, and but if you can try to stay as consistent as possible, then that's what we try to do. Especially with our service. I think going back to what it means to be a salesperson, it's like I'm never not on call. And I have some people that will shoot me a text at like 3:00 in the morning after they get done their shift or close the bar. Hey, I need this tomorrow. And I'm like, that's fine. Reach out to me. I might not get back to you at 3 a.m, but I always try to be as available as possible because that gives me a little bit of a leg up on the big guys. If I'm able to sneak in, if somebody's like, oh, well, I'm only here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or I don't, you have to order a certain amount of beer and we're only in this area every other week. We've benefited a lot from that, and just being a consistent presence for people to rely on. So, yeah.
Definitely. I also want to give a quick shout out. My first beer I made was Working Cat.
Oh, yeah.
That's also the name. I'm most proud of the name. But
it's true.
The work you guys do with the SPCA and like kind of everything that you guys do with cats in the city is like kind of unmatched. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. I mean, we just had Allison on with the dog bar, but like
Right.
the cats are kind of the same monster in Philly, and Nancy and kind of everything that you guys do.
Yeah,
kinda
I mean,
touches on that.
Nancy, she really, that's her baby. I mean, I can't take any credit for that. I mean, I'm always trying to be there to, to spread the cat love and all that stuff, but that's her full passion. I mean, she really loves it. And, she helps to rescue cats all over the city and find homes for them. So we do a lot of work with the SPCA.
I mean, I think it's just super authentic. It's like, all these craft breweries, everyone's got to have their own thing. Everyone's got to have their own brand. And it's like you guys have stayed true to who you guys are the entire time. And then every brewery also has to have like a social cause that they're connected to. It's just the fact of the matter it. And you guys have found something that is like genuinely, truly PBC.
Yeah.
And you guys have like stuck to it throughout the years. And you guys are genuinely making a difference.
It's cool because you see other, we're not the first people to, have cats in the brewery or anything. So you see other people kind of making it more well known at other breweries or are capitalizing off it a little bit more.
But Duke's the OG.
Yeah, so Duke is the OG. He's our working cat. So he's our resident cat that tours the brewery and finds pests and all that different kind of thing. And we've added to the family as well too. So we've come out with a line of cat themed beer. So we have the working cat, we have the black cat, which is and then and then another one's called Space Cowboy. So we have a cat that looks like a cow, so we call him Cowboy. So it's fun. I mean, and you get people that are interested in it, and it's like, you have to have some kind of little spin these days to separate yourself from everybody else. So I'm like, as a salesperson, it's like, well, whatever, let's just go with the cat thing. It'll be, we can partner with, philanthropy and do something good and, make some great beers at the same time. So yeah, it's been fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the best parts of working at Philadelphia Brewing, obviously, I love working there. But Bill and Nancy make you lunch every day.
Yeah.
Literally make lunch in the kitchen for you every single day.
Yeah, it was always, it's not so much anymore because we're so much more pared down. But that was always a motto, and everybody felt like family. They treat all their employees like family.
Lunch every day. They make it. Everyone stops what they're doing. They go eat lunch.
Yep.
Honestly, when I first started working there, I was not used to eating vegetarian food, and like 90% of what they make is vegetarian.
Yeah. Richie was like, "I'm gonna go get a cheesesteak," and I'm he's like, "I can't exist off of this,"
no
and I was like, "I hear you." Yeah, exactly. There was, but yeah, it was always like, it always brought everybody together, and it was good, to sit down and kind of go over what was, take a break from everything, and then
take a break, and then you have the 4 cats in there, Cowboy.
Yeah, everybody's hanging out. Yeah,
going crazy.
Yeah, so it's cool. It's always been a great, morale builder and a lot of camaraderie come off of that. Some really good ideas for beers and have come out of those lunch meetings.
Definitely.
So yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Where can we follow you guys? You got anything to plug? Any events or anything? I know you guys do open mics and stuff.
Yeah. So we got just go to Philadelphia Brewing on Instagram. That's where we have most of our events. Up to date events. Great our great PR firm, Punch Media.
They know them very well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kylie, she kicks ass, and
the same way that everyone. in the bar scene. I feel like Kylie knows everyone as well.
She does, yeah. Yeah, we make a great team. But yeah, they do a great job for us. So check out at Philadelphia Brewing. And, we do food trucks and, weekly open mic on every Wednesday.
Cool.
And then...
I remember we had a Rick and Morty event.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I didn't know so many people were in love with Rick and Morty. But
I
we
didn't
had,
either.
Did you guys have the truck?
Yeah,
We had
the
some
truck
food
pulled
trucks,
up
the
and
truck
everybody
pulled up.
went out of control.
And then,
Yeah.
who was it? The Aardvark Felon
Yeah, Frank.
was
Yeah.
playing like custom songs from the show.
Yeah,
That was a crazy event.
Yeah, so Frank is the host for the open mic. It's
Yeah.
Whiskey Unplugged.
Yep.
And so they still do that every Wednesday. So and they get a great crowd for that on Wednesdays. And then things just change. We'll have Catter Day with cat adoptions. I think it's every third Saturday of the month. So there's always some cool stuff going on.
I mean, there's cool stuff, and I think just the ceiling is like, there is no roof for you guys right now. I mean, I think the whole neighborhood is like so exciting right now. That new restaurant coming in, I think that Philadelphia Brewing's just getting started. I think this next summer is going to be crazy for you guys.
I'm looking forward
And,
to
like,
it.
Your
Yeah.
beer garden now is so cool.
Yeah, we got the space of all the beer gardens. So and now it's like we transition into the winter months, but so we have this whole patio that's all heated, so people can
It
come
was
in there.
so nice. When we went pretty recently.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And it was so nice outside.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's like such a fun space.
It's
to
real
just spend
nice,
time
yeah.
in.
And it feels like you're at a brewery. It's not like
Yeah.
some brand new fancy place. Like it feels like you're at a brewery.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one cool part about where we are in the building that we have is it has its own character to the building itself. And no offense to anybody who's in one, but it's like it's not in an industrial park. Like it's this is not just have some tanks
It's in a
and
brewery from 1860.
it's a legit brewery. Yeah, I mean, and it's that's something to be said too, is that we're still using it for its original purpose. So super proud of that and super proud of the work that we continue to do. So looking forward to keeping it moving.
Nice. Well, I'm
Yes.
excited to keep having Kenzinger wherever
Yeah.
I go.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'll keep putting it in the basement for you.
Awesome. So Philadelphia Brewing on Instagram, and
Yeah.
then you can follow us at Brewdat and at the Brewdat Podcast on Instagram and every social media. Cool. Yeah.